Hi, so the purpose of the screencast is to show off the feature and documentation for action selection. And basically, I'm going to talk about the how action what action selection is, how is it demonstrated as from user perspective, and then how is it working in the code base perspective. So I hope people are able to go back to the screencast and then understand and how it works, and then maybe if a modification is required in the future, they can always go back to the screencast for reference. So obviously I have these two scenes, which is the normal menu scene. It's just not too much different, and then this is the game scene, uh, which is where you can see all the games are, and with the camera later on with the camera. Now, maybe before we start off, I should explain what action selection is. So action selection is basically this UI part here, maybe in the plus with the enter button. So the UI part here on the actions is basically allow player to do what actions they want to the selected bot. So like if they want to make the bot move, attack, guard, or use the special abilities. Now this feature does not including to have all of those, all moving features, attack features, guard features, abilities, but the action selection is more of the placeholder place to make them. For example, if I so the extent to this job, for example, is when I click move, it's actually saying move, and then if it's click attack, if it's saying attack instead of doing the same thing and stuff like that. It seems simple, but with the whole thing set up with the player spawning and stuff like that is a bit complicated. I will discuss that in the different screencasts. How there's a bug with the how we spawn a player and just assigning a function into a UI button, but I gonna discuss that in the later bug report and finding and stuff like that. But for now, I'm just gonna demonstrate it first and then show it how I assign function to a script. So let's jump into the menu to make sure that the proper lobby is set up. So now there's no need to have a multiplayer in this because this action selection is just strictly into local. So if it works in local, then it's later on in the function that is attached. For example, the attack function itself or the move function itself that is responsible to handle the networking. But all those buttons do is just make sure it works locally for now. Now, I start the game, and then you see my camera. So yeah, so because it's only a first one player, so you only see two bots. Now, a I have a if check for just the purpose of the demo that if you don't select any of the bots, see it's not selected, it won't do anything. So you can see down in the console it does say selecting. Now, obviously, there's a lot of debugging purposes. So, for example, every click it will say selecting. That is a debug for another purpose on the function. But basically, if this gets selected, it will say different things on the console. So for now, you can ignore this selecting, and then I can explain that whatever it is on the another screencast. So the way it works is I select a bot, and then you can see it selected. And then if I click move, it says what the player name is, which is I put in A. Maybe I should have put in a different name, but I'm definitely sure that A was the player name. And then the troop, it's type of the troop. I think this is the troop, and it is a bot. It's still the same visual, and then it's the what is it doing? Because I click move, it's going moving. And then, for example, if I click attack, it's going to be attacking. If it's guard, it's going to say guarding, and then specialty. So it shows that this button does work. It's only disability, so move doesn't say attack and etc. And then it's calling it once. Is exactly what we want. So now we want to say okay, I'm gonna select this other bot and then do the same thing. So you can see that it's not selecting the other bot movement because this is troop and this one is the tank. So it does different set of movement. So, and then one thing for the nearest element of the UI is just we can put a slider in it because it's an AR game. We need as much a space that we can for a visual camera, so we can make a height or unheight. But that is the extent of what action selection does. So it's basically a placeholder for later on for the other functions to be placed with. Now, it seems simple. So if you see a lot of tutorials on Unity how to assign um, buttons with the on-click function, it's simple enough. But as I said before, there's a interesting bug and interaction within how we spawn players. So basically, at this point of time, when just an inspector, the player doesn't exist, the bot itself where the function lies doesn't exist, so we cannot really assign them because it's just a prefab that the game doesn't know is it going to spawn or not. So that's why it's giving us trouble. Some certain function just doesn't want to be called because it just Unity does not sure whether it's exists at some moment point of time. I will explain that detail on the screencast, but that's the main reason why if you see here on the click, it's just empty from the get-go, and then we assign them using a script. So the script in question is called assign button event class. So we have the assign button. So which type of button is a move button, attack button, guard button, and special button. And then we also have a bool checking if they're all assigned. So if it's all assigned, we don't need to assign them anymore. And then uh, so at the start we say that all assigned is false because it's not assigned. And then on the update we call custom methods to assign the listeners. And then in the assign listeners, basically we check if all button has been assigned or not. So this is checking if they already assigned, preventing to do all of this over and over again. It's just efficiency. I know it's a kind of bad practice and they update to make sure to check it over and over time, but it's better than having no check at all. Now, this one is checking if the players is already in the game. There's a couple of frames on because we are using multiplayer and then basically we waiting for the server is ready to spawning the players. Now there's a couple of frames that the player are not spawned yet, so there's like around, I'm not exactly sure how much numbers, depends on the ping, but there's like 12 to 20 frames before the players actually spawning. So like there's no object in the players for like at least 20 frames. So that's why, as I said, it's gonna be causing problem. We just do it normally on Unity, just drag and drop. So that's why it's just checking if the game manager has a players. If it doesn't, just wait. Basically, just like move along, and then it will get called in the next frame. So basically, just like wait until the player have uh, the players just exist in the game. So now, if the players exist in the game, is get the nickname. So this is a function to get player based on a nickname. So you can choose. Oh yeah, A is I will get A. So A is this one, and then B is this one. But there's no restriction in the menu yet that players should have different nickname. So we need to rectify that because if they do have the same nickname, this code will not work. Now, so and then this is basically just assign all of these functions that is from the bot, from the player that we get into the buttons itself. So locally, the player should have like the bot. It's of the bots like so. If I cannot show you visually, but in here is gonna be two listeners. So one is for tang and one is for troop because that is each player have two bots. Now, and you can see it's add listener and bot script move. So this is where all of the function is placeholder. So if we can go to a bot controller, we have this simple kind of placeholder function like move and then attack, and then uh, let's see, another one is guard, which is basically just say the name of the bot and then it's guarding, and then abilities and that's it. So it's basically by checking in the console whether it's the doing is it assigned or not, we can see, oh yeah, it's doing what we want. It's basically just calling the actual bot that I selected, and then doing the right function. So move button doing move, and then we select a tank, so tank should move. So that is really important in this action selection branch. And then after we assign all of them, and then basically say we true, so it doesn't get called again, because we don't want to assign it over and over again. We're just creating a lot of unnecessary listeners. Now, for the niche window slider, we basically use this script, which is toggle action. That is exists only if you see the element of the component of the on click. See, this is how you would assign another button, so it doesn't give any mistake, because like it's just a script instead of like an object that you need to be spawned. So that's why it's fine on the toggle button, and then it's obviously exists from the frame 0, so there's no problem in that. But so basically just assign a hide on hide button function, which is on hide sorry, that is the name of the game object. So the function was the toggle action toggle hide window, which is this one. So basically it's just switching a boolean, which is true. If it's formerly true, it's false. If it's formerly false, now it's true. So basically we have a bool show window, which is if the show window is true, then it slides to the right, and then if it's false, slide to the left. The game object is left that we want to be sliding. So in this case, it's the action window. Now we get all sorts of information like the stats of that action window. So for example, what is the rectangle transform, and then what is the minimum x, which is the most far left that it can travel, and then what is the maximum far right it can travel. And then obviously we can specify a speed, and then we can always change this. But for now I just made it private, so it's not that easy to change this, because we don't really want to change it all the time. But like, yeah, it's up to the developers. So now in the start we just assign the Windows transform into whatever the game object is. So basically, if we look at in the Unity here, let's see, action windows now. Here, so the game object is assigned to action windows, and action windows has a component called rect transform. So this is where the x are, what is the rotation scale and everything. So every position information, which is all we care for, is stored in a rectangle transform. Now, and then to get the maximum of the x, I just get the current position x, because we started with the window shown. So if we started with the window is not shown, we would have a different value in here. So that's why you have to be careful whether we start with the true or false. So, and then the minimum x is basically the x right now minus the width. So if you can imagine, the x is the far left point of the shown rectangle, and then just minus that with the width of the whole rectangle, you get the most minimum distance that you can travel to. Now, the update just basically always checking if the window is false or true, so it's able, if the boolean is switched, you can just the action windows will translate immediately. And then this is basically just if the x is not in the maximum position, just plus it off if we meant to show the window. But if it's not meant to show the window, and then the position is, as long as the position is bigger than the minimum x, then just minus the position with the speed. So it's the simple little things, just to make it kind of nice hide, instead of just like make it translate instead of just popping on and off, so it's easier in the eyes and stuff. in eye and stuff like that. It's definitely useful for the AR game because you will definitely need the entire screen for camera. That is for action selections. I noticed there's a lot of bugs and issues that need detailed explaining, so that will require another screencast. So thank you for listening.